By the time the porch light finally stopped stuttering and the cicadas settled into that droning chorus, I'd already tucked away the one thing that could burn their pretty little world down. I didn't know about the wristband yet, or the name on that receipt, or what my hands would do when the truth finally bared its teeth. I just knew I wasn't safe in my own house. When the porch light flickered, I stopped loving him. My name is Maya, and I used to think the word home meant a porch swing, 2 chipped mugs, and his jacket slung off the newel post like it belonged there. That night, though, home felt like a mouth about to spit me out. The light over the steps kept fizzing like a mosquito zapper, and every time it dimmed I told myself to breathe, to stop reading into things, to not make a problem where maybe there wasn't one. My chest didn't listen. It climbed up into my throat and just sat there. Cole's Chevy rolled up with that familiar rattle in the tailgate. He works line crews, long stretches after storms, and the usual script would have been him stomping mud from his boots, me teasing him about the mess, us putting on a game in the background and pretending the world was simple. Instead, he killed the engine and stayed in the truck for a beat too long. That pause hit me like cold water. I watched his silhouette in the cab light, head bowed, hands on the wheel, a shape you'd mistake for prayer if you were feeling generous. He finally came in with a takeout bag and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Figured you didn't want to cook," he said, dropping Bojangles onto the counter like it was a peace offering. Grease dotted the paper. He smelled like power lines and rain, and under that, something metallic, like coins in a hot palm. "Long shift?" I tried to keep it casual. My voice snagged, then smoothed out like I was ironing it as I spoke. "Yeah. Rough." His jaw worked while he chewed. The way he wouldn't meet my eyes put a tiny bell ringing in the back of my head. If I'd listened, really listened, maybe I'd have saved us both a lot of time. But love teaches you to shush your alarms. You know? We ate on the couch, TV murmuring about a weather front moving in from the west. Cole kept touching his pocket, left side, thumb tapping, tap, tap, pause, tap. I felt my shoulders crawling up toward my ears. I forced a laugh at a commercial, then caught my reflection in the dark TV bevel, lips pressed thin, shoulders squared like I was bracing for a wave. He noticed. "You okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." He nodded too quickly. "Same." Later, in the bathroom, I traced steam loops on the mirror while the shower ran. My hands were shaky. I told myself it was caffeine. The water went cold faster than usual. When I came out, Cole was already in bed, back turned, phone face down on the nightstand. Some nights he sleeps like a rock. Some nights he thrashes and mumbles. That night, he was too still. Like a mannequin of himself laid carefully in the dark. I lay there counting his breaths. 1, 2, 3, and on 4 his shoulders hitched the tiniest bit, like he'd remembered to pretend. I stared at the ceiling and thought about the way the porch light flickered exactly when his truck turned the corner, like the house knew something I didn't. I told myself I was being dramatic. He'd been distant lately because work was rough, his mom had called more, money had been tight since I cut hours at the clinic. Reasonable things. Ordinary drift. Then he said a name in his sleep. Just a whisper, almost nothing. Annie. Or maybe Addie. It slid out of his mouth soft, like a word he was used to tasting. My stomach did a slow roll. I lay there hot and cold in waves. I wanted to shake him awake and ask who Annie was. Instead I lay still, palms damp, counting my pulse in my wrists. I've always been the sort of person who waits. I wait until the soup cools, until the sale, until the red light changes. Waiting has cost me a lot. In the morning, he left before dawn for another emergency call-out. He kissed my forehead, light as a moth, and smelled like detergent that wasn't ours. After the door clicked shut, the air felt heavy and stale. I made coffee and couldn't swallow it. My mouth was paper. I went out to grab his hoodie from the truck because I always did. He forgets it everywhere and gripes about the cold at daybreak. The cab light flicked on, bleached and lonely. That's when I saw it under the passenger seat, a crumpled hospital wristband, the plastic cloudy like it had been rubbed with a thumb. I picked it up, and the little printed squares dug into my fingertips. I didn't recognize the hospital logo. The name was worn, the first letter could have been an A. My hand started to tremble, stupid little shivers that made the band rattle. I swallowed so hard it hurt. I put the wristband back exactly where I found it. Then I slid into the driver's seat and just sat, listening to the tick of cooling metal. I looked at our house, the porch swing, the soft sag in the cushion where my body knows to land, and something in me shifted. Not a snap. A quiet tilt. I wasn't going to ask him. I wasn't going to beg for crumbs of truth. I was going to learn the whole recipe. So I took his spare key from the visor and tucked it into my pocket, slow and careful. I didn't know yet what I was going to do. Only that, the next time that porch light flickered, I wouldn't be the one waiting under it. I walked back inside with that spare key burning a little circle into my thigh, like I'd tucked a coal in my pocket. The house smelled faintly like last night's fried chicken and that lemon cleaner I pretend makes everything okay. I set my palms on the kitchen counter to steady them, but my fingers kept drumming by themselves, some jittery rhythm I couldn't turn off. I told myself I wasn't going to snoop. Then I opened the junk drawer, because that's where our secrets live, you know? Rubber bands, takeout menus, coupons he swears he'll use, the spare mailbox key. I found a grocery list in his blocky handwriting: bread, eggs, windshield fluid. Normal. Ordinary. I stared at it like it might blink, but paper stayed paper. Work at the clinic was a blur. I took a shorter shift, pasted on smiles, kept my hands busy so they wouldn't shake. Tasha watched me with that best friend squint that says you can stop pretending. On my break she offered her sweet tea and a quiet, "You okay?" The tea turned to sand in my mouth. When I got home the silence was big and open like an empty field. I walked through it careful, feeling for holes. Cole hadn't been back yet. I stood in the laundry room breathing in the dryer sheet smell and it hit me again, that detergent from his collar, not ours. I leaned into the basket and inhaled like an idiot, nose burning with that bright, fake floral. My chest went tight. I pulled back fast, embarrassed, even though nobody could see me. I waited out a sunset that felt like it took forever. When his truck finally pulled up, I watched from the window and counted those beats he always takes before getting out. He came in with a gas station bouquet like he'd remembered too late that he should have brought a peace flag. "Rough couple of days," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. My skin felt like glass, cool, hard, easy to break. "We ate leftovers." He laughed in the right places. He looked at me the way people look at a photo when they're trying to remember where it was taken. After dinner he took a call on the back porch, voice low. I sat on the couch with the TV murmuring and listened to the porch boards complain under his feet. When he came in, he smelled like rain and that same metallic edge from the night before. He showered long. I heard the water beat the tile like a fist. That was my window. I took the spare key and slipped outside, heart thudding so loud I was sure the neighborhood could hear it. Cicadas were going off. The porch light did that little shiver, as if it knew. I eased open his truck and the cab light spilled over everything like a secret spilled too wide. Glove box first. Insurance, napkins, a church bulletin he must have grabbed while visiting his mom. Then a folded paper with a soft crease from being opened and closed too many times, a charity receipt. Suggested gift lined out, a lower amount written in his quick scratch. There was a printed line, "In honor of," with a name typed cleanly underneath. It started with an A. My mouth filled with that metallic taste, like pennies. I blinked hard to keep the page from doubling. I kept telling myself there were 100 reasons. Somebody's fundraiser at work. A storm victim he'd met on shift. I whispered those maybes right into the cab, fogging the air with them, then I put the receipt back exactly how I'd found it. Passenger seat next, under it, the wristband again, edged with lint, like it had been living down there. I didn't touch it this time. I just looked until the letters stopped swimming. From the center console I pulled a parking stub with the logo of a medical center 2 towns over. No time, no room to think. The shower cut off inside. My body moved before my mind could argue. I slid everything back, closed up, and padded in like I'd only gone to put trash in the bin. I stood at the sink and watched my reflection flatten into the window, my jaw locked so hard my teeth ached. In bed he curled toward me like always, a reflex. I watched the ceiling again and felt that slow, quiet tilt continuing. Not a snap. I knew I couldn't keep standing in this fog. I needed the truth, not the story I'd made to survive. So I made a plan, simple and mean. The next time he left the room, I'd get proof. Not whispers. Not smells. Proof I could hold, and show, and never unsee. I didn't have to wait long. Cole tossed his phone on the dresser and went back to the bathroom to grab a clean towel, whistling like nothing inside him was shaking. The shower started up again, that hollow drumbeat on tile. My body moved before my brain finished the argument. I picked up the phone. No drama, no spy music. Just a rectangle of glass heavy in my hand and the feeling of a door I'd been scared to open finally swinging toward me. I didn't hunt around. I went straight to the places people keep their hearts, the Photos app and Messages. In Photos, second row from the top, there it was, a hospital room, all pale paint and humming machines. Cole sat on the edge of a bed, his head bent toward a woman's hand. You could see N4 taped to her wrist, a plastic clip on her finger, and a whiteboard behind them with a smiley face someone had drawn, trying too hard. The angle was low, like maybe a nurse had snapped it for them. Cole's mouth was set in that soft way he gets when he's trying not to cry. On the bed rail, clipped under a flimsy brochure, a name badge smiled up, Addie. My stomach flipped like I'd missed the last step on the stairs. The wristband in his truck. The charity receipt. All of it folded together with that one tidy word. The photo wasn't old. You could tell from the way the flowers on the table still looked perky, the kind of cheap carnations you get when you're buying gas and hope. My thumb went numb. Heat rushed up my neck. I stared so long my eyes blurred and the room swam, and when I blinked everything snapped cruelly back into focus. I told myself a dozen kinder explanations in under a minute. A cousin, a friend, someone from a storm call who didn't have anyone else. The stories tasted like chalk, but I still chewed them, because that's what you do when you love somebody who's making you small, you know? And then I opened Messages. The thread was pinned, just a single letter, A. The first thing that hit me wasn't a word. It was a photo of a pale wrist with a new bruise blooming under tape, captioned, Round 2. You hear? Cole's reply sat right under it, parking. Don't be scared. A little blue heart. Scrolling made my fingers shake. They said the copay didn't go through, A had written on another day. I can handle it, Cole answered. Don't think about anything but breathing. A later bubble, she asked if you were my husband. I said yes so they'd let you in. Then his reply, whatever gets you what you need. A smaller message near the bottom, tell me a stupid joke. His answer, knock knock. Orange, you glad I'm not making you eat hospital jello? I felt my mouth go totally dry. My jaw locked so hard it throbbed. Tiny tremors started in my forearms and worked their way up. There wasn't a single smoking gun sentence, nothing like the words you rehearse in your head when you imagine cheating. It was messier than that. It was tenderness. It was a man I knew being himself with someone who wasn't me, carrying her fear, smoothing it down with patience he hadn't had for me in a while. I took 2 proofs, just 2, and no more, a screenshot of the hospital photo, and a copy of that message where she called him her husband. My hands were unsteady, but I made sure not to disturb anything else. No fishing expedition, no revenge fantasy yet. Just facts I could hold up to the light and not be told I imagined. The water cut off. I put the phone down exactly where he'd tossed it and stared at myself in the dresser mirror. My face looked like it belonged to a woman who'd skipped too much sleep and said, "I'm fine," too many times. I watched my shoulders rise and fall, slow at first, then faster, like my body was trying to outrun me. He came out casual. I matched his smile, said yes to ice cream. After the door clicked, I held proofs and chose money. I didn't wait for the ice cream. The second the door latched, I felt my shoulders drop like someone had cut a tight string behind my neck. I opened the laptop, fingers slipping on the trackpad, and pulled up our bank app. My pulse thudded in my ears, that slow surf sound that makes it hard to think. I told myself I was just checking in, but yeah, I was hunting. The numbers hit me before the names did, little bites taken out of our balance on odd days, in odd places. Gas stations nowhere near his route. A pharmacy on the far side of town from his yard. And there, tucked between groceries and a hardware store run, the medical center logo that matched the parking stub from his console. My mouth went dry enough to hurt. Scrolling hurt too. Transfers out to a new checking nickname I didn't recognize, just 4 letters. D-E-L. Like he'd made a game out of it, hiding her name where he had to see it every time. My hand jerked and hit the table edge. The pain made me focus. I took a breath that barely made it past my collarbone and set up alerts. Every charge, every transfer, every ATM withdrawal. Ping me, I told the app, like I was hiring a little bell to tattle. Then I did something I should have done months ago. I opened a new account in just my name. No drama. A quiet insurance policy. I moved enough to cover rent and a few months of groceries. The transfer bar crawled like it was dragging a heavy suitcase. I stared at it until my eyes burned. When it landed, I felt at once greedy and small. I told myself I wasn't stealing. I was setting a boundary with numbers because words hadn't worked. Cole came back jangling the paper bag like a prize. I shut the laptop, pasted on a grin, and let cold vanilla numb my tongue while he told me about a transformer that fried like bacon. He tried to catch my eyes. I kept mine soft, like I didn't have sharp edges anymore. He relaxed. That hurt more than anything. He relaxed because he believed I'd chosen not to see. A few mornings slid by, sticky and slow. I kept the alerts on silent but vibrate. Every buzz felt like a bee landing right on my sternum. Gas near the hospital. Coffee 2 blocks over. Another pharmacy. I started waking up before dawn with my jaw clamped so tight my molars felt bruised. At the clinic, I misread a chart and had to step into the supply closet to cry without sound. I pressed my knuckles into my eyelids until little fireworks popped. Tasha knocked once, then twice, then let it go. Later she slipped a granola bar into my pocket like she was feeding a skittish stray. That night, while Cole worked late, I sat with the laptop again and did math that felt like digging. I traced dates. The first mystery charge lined up with the first time he started sleeping too quietly. The pharmacy hit matched the charity receipt week. It wasn't a straight line, but it was close enough. I thought about how he'd touched his pocket while we watched TV, that nervous tap-tap pause. My hand started to mimic it on the table before I caught myself. I laced my fingers together and squeezed until the joints ached. The next move needed to be simple. I wasn't going to corner him with half-formed accusations. I wanted him to walk himself into the truth. So I told him I was thinking about going back to full-time until things loosened up. He looked relieved enough to make me dizzy. "Babe, that'd help," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Just for a while." The "for a while" made something in me tip another degree. I asked him to handle rent this month, just this once, since I'd be picking up extra shifts. He said sure, no pause. The following day my phone buzzed at the sink, ATM withdrawal. Then another, smaller one. The bank app showed our rent paid in cash at the Dropbox. Not through the portal like always. Cash is a fog, it leaves fewer footprints. I stood there with damp hands and understood that he thought of everything except my brain. I needed eyes, not just numbers. I took the spare key from its mug on the shelf and pushed it into my palm until the teeth left little crescents. I told Tasha I had to swing by a friend's place on the other side of town after my shift. She looked at my face and only said, "Call me if your stomach starts doing that thing." I nodded, throat thick. I parked 2 blocks from the medical center and sat low behind the wheel, heart banging around like it had too much room. The building glowed that tired kind of clean, the kind that smells like bleach and fear. People moved in and out, everyone carrying some invisible weight. I told myself not to hate her. I told myself not to pity him. I tried to just see. Cole's Chevy rolled into a spot near the side entrance. He moved fast, head down, hoodie up. I watched him press his hand to the back of his neck the way he does when he's bracing. He pulled a brown envelope from under his jacket and slid it to the woman at the desk. She nodded like this wasn't new. He texted, then waited in the corner, staring at a TV tuned to some daytime show where canned laughter never stops. My phone buzzed in my lap, a small coffee across the street, charged to the same card. Addie was close enough to smell the beans. I swallowed and tasted metal. I didn't get out. Not yet. I just watched my life walking further away from me through automatic doors that sighed every time they opened, and I knew the next step would be the one I couldn't take back. I stayed parked until my legs prickled and my hands went pins and needles on the wheel. When Cole disappeared through the automatic doors, I started the engine and rolled away slow, like any other car escaping the lot. At the corner I pulled over and let my forehead rest against the cool window. I could taste that coppery fear again, and underneath it, something steadier, like the first grip on a rope. I called Tasha because I didn't trust my own head. She picked up on the second ring and said my name like she was catching me by the jacket. I asked if she could meet me at the diner off Route 9. 10 minutes, she said. Wait inside. I stared at the steering wheel and said, okay, though my laugh came out thin. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and maple syrup that had given up. My knees bounced under the booth until the silverware rattled. Tasha slid in, pressed her warm hand over mine, and didn't talk for a full minute. When I finally told her about the wristband, the messages, and the charity receipt with that neat little, in honor of, she closed her eyes and exhaled hard enough to move the sugar packets. Do you want to know, or do you want to win? She asked, voice low. The question hit me in the teeth. I felt my throat close. Both. She nodded. Then you need to pick the order. We stared at each other over pie neither of us touched. No first, I said after a bit. Win after. We drove back together. She made me park on the far street and walk. Inside the hospital lobby the air had that scrubbed lemon that never quite covers the bleach. At the desk, a woman with tired eyes asked who we were there for. My mouth opened and the name I hadn't said aloud yet came out small. Addie. The clerk checked a screen. Room is restricted. Support person already listed. My palms went hot. We didn't push. We took the elevator up and walked the hall pretending to hunt vending machines. The carpet swallowed sound, the lights were too kind. Passing an open doorway, I saw ginger hair under a knit cap, feet tucked under a thin blanket, a hand with tape and a bruise. Cole's voice floated out, low and careful, telling a dumb squirrel joke. A small laugh answered him. I kept walking to a little alcove where a water fountain hissed. Tasha stood with me while my whole body shook in tiny, controlled earthquakes. I gripped the edge of the countertop until my knuckles went white. He's in there, I said, because saying it made it like a fact in a book. He's in there, she echoed, because that's what a friend does when your reality needs a second voice. On the way out we passed a gift shop. I bought a cheap plant and asked them to put no card on it. The cashier wrapped it in crinkly green and I carried it like something alive and dangerous. I left it on the volunteer desk without a name. Not kindness. Not cruelty either. A placeholder for a feeling I couldn't understand yet. At home, the house looked exactly the same and nothing inside me did. I washed my face too hard and stared at the woman in the mirror who still loved the man she was planning to break. I hated her softness. I needed it too. That contradiction sat heavy in my chest like a stone in a jar. Revenge came to me the way rain starts, as a change in air before the drop. Cole hates surprises unless he's the one making them. He loves an audience. He needs the story tidy. Fine. I'd give him a tidy story, one he'd believe right up until it snapped shut. I texted his mom about hosting a little cookout to thank the crew after the storms. She offered peach cobbler before I even asked. I made a list that looked innocent from far away: folding chairs, paper plates, loaner projector from the clinic, photos for a storm season slideshow. At the bottom, in small letters only I'd read, I added 2 words: hospital board. Not proof for the world. Proof for him. When Cole came home later, I was kneading burger mix with my sleeves rolled up, like a woman planning a happy thing. He kissed my cheek, grateful, relieved, stupidly light. I let him float. The porch light hummed and steadied. In my head, the first drop started to fall, and I listened for thunder that hadn't arrived yet but would. I didn't sleep after I made that harmless-looking list. My body buzzed like a bad outlet. Every time I closed my eyes I heard a projector warm up. I lay curled until the sky went dull gray, then got up and cooked because moving beat thinking. Burgers, slaw, beans. I set folding chairs on the grass, chalked a crooked welcome on the driveway, and inside I charged the clinic's loaner projector. The HDMI hid under a dish towel. The 2 screenshots lived on a thumb drive labeled Storm Pics. I kept patting my pocket like I was checking a pulse. Cole wandered in, rubbing sleep from his eyes, kissed the back of my neck, said the crew was excited and his mom was bringing cobbler. I smiled into the skillet and kept my shoulders loose so he wouldn't feel how rigid I was. He grabbed a bun and whistled out the door. That sound made my teeth ache. Tasha arrived with ice. "You sure?" she asked. I nodded. "Not to humiliate him," I said. "I just need him to say it out loud." She looked at the sheet I'd tacked to the garage like a backyard screen. "Then you set the pace," she said. We tested the projector while Cole ran errands. It coughed light, the sheet went gray-blue. I played the slideshow: split limbs, a snapped pole, his crew grinning with that bone-deep fatigue. Then a gray card: intermission, tiny letters only I'd notice. After it sat the 2 proofs. I stared until my eyes watered. Tasha flipped the machine off. "Save your eyes," she murmured. I printed the hospital photo on foam board and slid it into the trunk under a blanket. On the way back, his mom called, all marinade and church gossip, pride spilling out. "He's been stretched thin when somebody needs him," she added, soft. It landed like a small coin in my palm, neither excuse nor accusation, just weight. At home, I tucked a backpack under the bed, change of clothes, passport, the new account info. I pushed the mattress down to hide the outline. I hated that bag. I loved it too. I sat on the floor and let my hands tremble until they were tired. By late afternoon the yard filled, lawn chairs, cornhole, someone's radio on classic rock. Cole came back with ice, beers, and that boy grin. His mom arrived with cobbler. I held a smile that didn't slip. When the sun slipped behind the maple, I tapped a spoon to a glass and called everyone over. I thanked the crew, talked about long hours and neighbors being neighbors, phrases that feel like food. Cole stood off to the side with his hands in his pockets, head tilted, proud and a little shy. My stomach tilted too. "Got a slideshow," I said, and folks hooped like we were about to watch ourselves be heroes. I clicked. Limbs, poles, tired faces, laughter where it was safe. The porch light flickered and held. Intermission. A couple of guys cracked snack jokes. I let the pause stretch until my pulse found a slower lane. My thumb pressed the button again, gentle as testing a trigger, and hospital light filled the sheet. The whiteboard smiley. His bent head. Her taped hand with the fresh bruise. The yard went thin quiet, that quiet right before thunder chooses itself. I didn't look at Cole. I listened, a chair leg scraped, someone whispered, "What is?" The radio clicked off. The image stayed up, bright and plain and impossible to misread if you'd been me these last weeks. My jaw locked. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth like it was trying to keep me from speaking too fast. "Next," Tasha breathed. I clicked. The message where she called him her husband appeared huge and clean, that make it easy sentence that had knocked the wind out of me in our bedroom. Someone made the sound we make when a car almost kisses a curb. His mom's hand found my elbow and held it, not because she understood yet, but because she knows what a body does when the ground shifts. Only then did I turn to him. Cole's face went carefully blank, the kind of blank you wear when a transformer pops and you've got to move before you think. He took one step toward the screen and stopped. His jaw worked like he was chewing something too tough, and his hand went to the back of his neck, that tell I'd been tracking like weather. "Babe," he started, soft, and the yard leaned in. I swallowed, tasted that metal again, and, without raising my voice, invited him to tell our friends what they were looking at. The porch light buzzed. The projector fan whirred. He opened his mouth, and the night waited. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "It's not what it looks like," he said, and even a couple of guys who love him winced. "She's sick," he added. "I've been helping. That's all." The picture on the sheet didn't blink. The word husband glowed like a sign you can see from the highway. I felt my fingers go cold enough that the metal spoon slid right against my skin. "Helping with what?" I asked, calm like a nurse asking intake questions. "With paperwork? With coffee? With your mouth on her name while you sleep?" A murmur moved through the yard. His mom whispered my name and stepped closer like she could shield both of us. Cole's jaw twitched. He looked down, then up. "She doesn't have anybody," he said. "Her sister's gone. Insurance is a mess. They wouldn't let me back unless I was." He gestured at the screen. "Your wife," I supplied, because if we were going to do this, we weren't going to talk around it. My mouth tasted tinny. "So you married yourself to a lie and used our account to keep it fed." "I paid rent," he shot back, fast. "I paid the bills. In cash, at the Dropbox," I said, and watched his eyes flash. "Why hide it if it's so harmless?" He rubbed the back of his neck. The porch light hummed along. "Because you'd worry. Because you'd tell me to stop when I couldn't." His voice snagged. "I couldn't, Maya." That name landed hard. For a second my body remembered love. Then my ribs cinched tight again. "Who is she to you?" I asked. "Say a noun. Don't say someone." He swallowed. His crew stared at the grass like it had answers. Tasha's nails pressed crescents into my palm. He finally said, "She's a person I promised not to leave alone." "Did you promise her before or after the bracelet?" I asked. He flinched. His mom stepped in front of the sheet like she could block it. "Maybe this isn't porch talk," she said. "Maybe y'all come inside." I shook my head. My throat worked like I was swallowing dry bread. "No, I set this on the porch because this is where the lies started, under that light." I looked at Cole. "Are you sleeping with her?" He blinked. "Once. Twice. No." The word came out flat, like he'd rehearsed it and it still didn't fit. "Are you in love with her?" A beat, long enough for a truck to pass and for the projector fan to kick louder. "I don't know," he said, and the yard changed. People shifted, weight off their toes. His mom's hand dropped from my arm. I nodded because my neck needed something to do. The tremor in my hands crawled up into my forearms. "Okay," I said softly. "Okay." I picked up the clicker and shut the image off. The sheet went blank and somehow that was worse. He took a step, like he might touch me. I stepped back. "Don't," I said. "Not out here." I wasn't going to let him fold me into a private story after using my life as a set. The crew started packing themselves, moving in that quiet way people do when they're trying to give you dignity. One guy squeezed his shoulder. Another told me the beans were good and immediately hated himself for it. Real life kept bumping the big thing. Cole's voice followed me toward the door. "Can we talk inside?" he asked. "Please. Not like this." "Inside is where I learned to stop believing you," I said, but I held the door anyway because muscle memory is stubborn. In the kitchen, Lemon Cleaner tried and failed to make it okay. I braced my hands on the counter. The spoon rattled. He leaned on the island, shoulders caved. "She's not a secret because she's dirty," he said. "She's a secret because she's fragile. Because people don't give grace. Because if you knew the whole thing, you'd..." "Try me," I said. My mouth was so dry the words scraped. He looked toward the porch like he could rewind the night with his eyes. "Not yet," he whispered. "Please." Something snapped, not loud. Like a little thread gave up. "Then tomorrow," I said. "You're taking me to her. You're saying all of it where she can hear you, and then I'll decide what I am to you." He closed his eyes. When he opened them, there was a kind of relief there that scared me. "Okay," he said. "Tomorrow." I felt the yes float through the room like a promise I didn't ask for. I turned off the porch light. The house sank into a softer dark, and somewhere deep in my chest a plan lifted its head. I woke before the sky figured out what color it wanted to be and stood at the sink with my hands under cold water until the shaking leveled off. Cole slept on his side of the bed like a man who'd made a bargain with silence. I didn't touch him. I didn't speak. When he finally stirred, the first thing out of his mouth was, "We're still going," like he'd dreamed a version where I let him off the hook. "Yeah," I said, and even I could hear the gravel. The drive over tasted like pennies and stale coffee. He kept one hand at 12 on the wheel, the other ghosting over his pocket, that dumb tap-tap pause I could feel in my teeth. I watched power lines tick past and thought about how many times he's climbed them for strangers while letting me dangle at home. My jaw clenched so hard my temple throbbed. He tried twice to tell me a detail, parking validation, which entrance, but the words died against the windshield. Inside, the hospital smelled like lemon and worry again. My stomach did that rolling thing, like an elevator that can't decide on a floor. The volunteer at the desk recognized him and smiled like he was the good kind of regular. "Back again," she said, then clocked my face and sobered. "You two know where you're going?" I nodded and hated how polite I sounded when I thanked her. Elevator ride up, soft beeps, a kid in Spider-Man pajamas clinging to a tired dad, my pulse counting the floors. Cole rubbed the back of his neck like it was a ritual that could get us through. At the hall, he slowed, then stopped, eyes on a door I remembered from that quiet walk by. He looked smaller there, like the frame had taken inches off him. "Before we go in," he said, "I need you to not..." He didn't finish. I waited. "Explode," he landed on. "I need you not to explode." I let out a sound that could have been a laugh if it had any light in it. "You need me to listen." He nodded. I took one long breath, the kind that shakes on the way out, and put my hand on the handle. A nurse with a ponytail and the kind of eyes that have seen too much stepped out, nearly bumping me. "You're Cole?" she asked. He nodded. She looked at me, then back at him. "She's been asking if you were coming." My stomach dropped, then steadied. The nurse lowered her voice. "Keep it calm, okay? She's on edge." We both said we would like that made it true. The door was ajar. I could see the corner of a whiteboard with a crooked smiley and the day's goal written in bubbly marker, "Walk to window." The plant I'd left sat on the sill, looking braver than it was. A knit cap rested on the tray. My throat tightened. I realized, stupidly, that I'd been hoping she'd be unlikable. It would have made everything easier to burn. Addie was smaller than the photo stole from her, coltish in that way sickness gives you, elbows a little too sharp, eyes too big. She had freckles like confetti and a bruise haloing the edge of the tape on her wrist. When she saw Cole, her shoulders fell in relief, you could hear. Then she saw me next to him and her mouth made a small O that wasn't surprised so much as bracing. "Hi," she said, voice rough with sleep or meds. "You must be Maya." My name in her mouth felt like a hand on a bruise. "I am," I said. My lips were dry. I had to unstick them. Cole stood between us like he could be a bridge and a wall at the same time. He looked at Addie the way people look at the horizon to steady themselves. "I told her I'd bring you," he said to Addie, like he was reporting in. "I told her we were done doing this like it's a secret." Something in my ribs loosened and then cinched right back up. Addie nodded once, a little queen in a paper castle. "Okay," she said. "Then let's not do secrets." Her hands trembled when she adjusted the blanket. She clocked it and smirked at herself, a tiny, tired joke that made me hate her less and more at the same time. "I don't want to make a scene," I started, and heard how it sounded in a hospital room, ridiculous, like announcing you don't want to drown while you're waist deep. "I just need words that match." My voice wobbled on match. Cole opened his mouth, and I lifted a hand. "From both of you." Addie glanced at him like they'd rehearsed some version of this and hadn't landed it. "He's been helping," she said, simple. "More than he should." I asked for too much. Cole flinched. "No," he said. I offered. My head buzzed. "Why you?" I asked him. Out of everyone with a wallet and a conscience, why you? He swallowed. The answer hovered behind his teeth. I could feel it. Whatever it was, it had weight. "Because I owed," he started, then shut it, jaw ticking. Addie's eyes flicked to the plant. "You brought that, right?" she asked, softer. "The little fern?" I nodded. "Thank you." I needed to look at something that wasn't a machine. I didn't expect the gratitude to slice me open. For a second I thought I might sit down on the floor. Instead I wrapped my arms around my middle and kept standing. "Are you in love with him?" I asked her, because I'd given up on polite. She breathed in, slow. "I'm in love with not dying," she said. "He feels like air. But that's not fair to him. Or you." Cole's hand found the rail like he needed the room not to move. "Maya," he said, and it sounded like a plea and a dare. "I'm going to say the thing I should have said on our porch." I lifted my chin and kept my face open even though everything in me wanted to armor up. He looked at both of us, then past us, like he could find a version of this that didn't hurt. "I made a promise a long time ago," he said, voice low, "and it's got its hand on my throat." He turned toward the door. "But I won't let it make me a liar today." "Come in," Addie said, and everything I'd planned shifted. "Come in," Addie said, and a woman with a sunflower badge slipped in with a thin folder. "I'm Kayla, social work. Checking on support and bills." She clocked Cole, then me. "We can do this later." Addie lifted her chin and said, "No secrets." "Do it." "Plenty of programs," Kayla said. "Payment plans. Nobody needs to go broke." She tapped the form. He listed himself for contact. "We can add or change." "Add me as emergency contact only," I said. "And please use whatever help keeps her afloat without wrecking anyone." Kayla nodded. "I'll swing back," she murmured, and left. The room went thin quiet again. I could hear the muted TV through the wall. Cole stared at the floor like he was waiting to be told his part. "Say it," I told him. "What we are, and what you did." He swallowed. "I told them I was her husband so she wouldn't be alone in the scary parts. I used our money because the bills didn't care. I hid it because I thought you'd stop me." Addie picked at the blanket, knuckles pale. "I shouldn't have asked him," she said to me. "The system treats spouse like a golden key." I grabbed it because I was drowning. Her voice cracked. She didn't cry. I believed her. "I don't want to be your golden key," I said. My tongue tasted like old coffee. And I'm done being your secret savings account, Cole. When we leave here, I'm moving the rest of my paycheck. The joint card comes out of my wallet. If you keep standing in this room, it has to be on your own 2 feet. He nodded once, like a man taking a hit he expected. I deserve that, he said. A beat later, I deserve worse. That landed wrong, like he was trying on penance. Don't put a halo on this, I told him, softer than I felt. Just don't make me your excuse. He dragged a hand down his face. I made a promise, he said again, before all this. It's old and ugly and, he stopped, jaw tight. I let the silence sit. Addie glanced at him, then back at me. He's trying to pay back something nobody charged him for, she said, tired. It isn't romantic. It's stubborn. Stubborn lodged. Not saint. Not villain. A man building a raft the wrong way and insisting it would float. I'm not here to punish your stubborn, I said. I'm here because he turned me into a prop. I looked at Addie. I'll help you find the right help. We have a patient advocate at my clinic who lives for this. You'll get a plan that doesn't depend on a lie or on my rent. Saying my clinic steadied me, like I was borrowing my own spine. Addie's eyes went wet, not spilling. Thank you, she said, small and clean. Cole made a sound that braided relief and grief. I didn't look at him. I stepped to the door. We're not done, I told him, palm on the frame to keep from swaying. You're going to walk downstairs with me and tell your mom what you did in words that match. Then you're coming home, taking the couch, and not touching me until you stop tapping your pocket and start telling the truth. My voice did that little shake on truth. I let it. He nodded again, slower. Okay, he said, hollowed out. Addie picked at a loose thread and gave me a small true smile. Bring me coffee that tastes like coffee, she said, rye. I almost laughed. Almost. In the hall, lemon cleaner hit harder. My knees wobbled and then remembered their job. Cole walked beside me like a man heading toward a cliff he finally sees. I texted Tasha, thumb clumsy, green light. She sent back a single heart I pretended not to need. The elevator dinged. I felt the next step forming in my mouth, the one that turns hurt into consequence, and I didn't wait for the doors to close to say it. We're stopping by your mom's on the way, and you're going to speak first. His mom lived in a one-story with a flag that snapped when trucks rushed by and a porch that always smelled like laundry and cinnamon. The screen door wheezed when we pushed it. She was at the sink in a church t-shirt, hands in suds, the good dish towels out like she'd expected company. When she turned and saw our faces, she dried her hands slow, like she was buying time with the cotton. Well, she said, voice steady as a hymn, which fire am I walking into? I didn't answer. Cole had to speak first. He stood near the fridge, knuckles on the edge of the counter, head down like a boy about to confess he'd cracked something that couldn't be glued. He rubbed the back of his neck. His jaw jumped. I lied, he said finally. I told a hospital I was someone's husband so I could sit with her. I used money that wasn't just mine. I kept it from Maya because I knew she'd tell me to stop and I couldn't. The kitchen got very small. His mom didn't gasp. She didn't scold. She pulled a chair out with her ankle and sat, palms flat, wedding band shining. Who's the girl? She asked. It came out practical, almost gentle. Sick, he said. Alone. His voice frayed there. I promised her I wouldn't leave in the scary parts. His mom's eyes flicked to me, then to the window, then back. You always think you gotta stand in the doorway when a storm comes, she said, and there was something like tired pride and fresh fear mixed together. You get that from, she cut herself off like the word had teeth. She folded the dish towel smaller and smaller until it was a fist. You embarrassed her, she added, and looked straight at her son like only a mother can. You used what wasn't yours to use. I know, he whispered, and the knowing didn't make anything lighter. My fingertips tingled. I kept them pressed to the cool laminate so they wouldn't shake. I'm taking the joint card out of my wallet today, I said, voice even. I'm moving the rest of my check. He'll sleep on the couch until he learns to talk like a person who hasn't been rehearsing. I'm getting a patient advocate to set Addie up so nobody needs a fake husband. Saying the name in his mother's kitchen felt like placing a hot coin on my tongue. She flinched just a little, then smoothed her face. You planning to leave? She asked, not nosy, just counting supplies before the storm hit. My throat worked. I'm planning to make him tell the truth until he runs out of lies, I said. After that, we'll see. Cole closed his eyes. When he opened them, there was a very old fear in there, the kind that doesn't have words, just shape. His mom stood and crossed to the fridge. She touched the corner of a sun-faded photo, Cole at 10, gap-toothed, one arm around a girl with braids, the other holding a paper ribbon that said, helper. A magnet held it crooked, like it had fallen and been stuck back up a dozen times. She didn't look at him when she spoke. You've been paying bills that aren't yours since you were too small to reach the counter, she said softly. But you don't get to set yourself on fire to keep strangers warm, and you sure don't get to burn the person who loves you. She turned back, eyes bright but dry. Fix what you can fix. Don't dress it up like sainthood. Something in my chest loosened, then cinched again just as quick. I thanked her for the cobbler like we were standing in any normal kitchen, like my mouth wasn't full of pennies. She hugged me tight, the kind that says I know this hurts and also you're not breaking alone. Over Cole's shoulder, she said, don't come back here with pretty words. Come back with changed habits. He swallowed and nodded like the motion hurt. We drove home quiet. The truck's rattle felt louder than usual, like every loose bolt had found its own little drum. Inside, I handed him a pillow and a faded quilt. He stood there in the lamplight, smaller than all the love I'd given him. Do I get a chance to explain the promise? He asked. I felt my jaw tighten, then make room. Tomorrow, I said. You get a window every night after dinner. No spins. No poetry. Just nouns and verbs. He lay on the couch like a man who'd practiced being uncomfortable. I brushed my teeth until the mint turned bitter and climbed into a bed that had too much space on one side. My muscles remembered the shape of him and kept reaching. I kept pulling them back. I didn't sleep much. When I did, I dreamed of the porch light flickering Morse code I couldn't translate. Before dawn I was up moving like I had someplace to be. I sent a message to the advocate at my clinic, need intake for oncology patient, no family, urgent. I stared at the bubble until it turned to delivered and felt, not peace, but a clean line forming where fog had been. On the counter I left 2 mugs. On his, I wrote with a dry erase marker, tonight, start with why you think you owe. On mine, I drew a tiny square, 1 box checked. He shuffled in, hair smashed, eyes wrecked. He read the mug, swallowed, and nodded without looking at me. Okay, he said. My hands trembled in a slow, stubborn way, like a train easing into motion. I tucked the backpack deeper under the bed, pressed the mattress down until it hid the outline, and told myself this wasn't running. This was loading the map. Then I opened the front door and let the morning in. The porch light clicked off. Somewhere down the street a dog barked twice. I heard the fan in the old projector tick as it cooled in the garage, and I knew exactly how the next reveal would land if he ran from the truth again. I spent the day trying to keep my body from showing what my head was doing. At the clinic, I moved like a person who knew where every box lived, and still I dropped a tray of syringes because my fingers just forgot. Tasha didn't say a thing. She nudged me out to the loading dock, pressed a bottled water into my hand, and let me breathe where the air smelled like cardboard and rain. Advocate's in, she said. She'll call you after rounds. I nodded, throat sore, palms sticking to the plastic. When the call came, I stood between shelves of gauze like I was hiding in a library. The advocate's voice was brisk and kind. She'd talked to Kayla. Paperwork was moving. There were programs. Real ones. We can cover a chunk, she said. We can set up rides. We can make sure she's got a case manager who answers the phone. My knees went a little loose. And the spouse thing? I asked. She exhaled through her teeth. Not needed, she said. Not appropriate. We'll fix the contact list with her consent. After my shift I drove to the hospital with 2 coffees that tasted like coffee, the way she asked. The volunteer recognized me and waved me through with a look that said she had her own story once. Outside Addie's door I paused until my heartbeat wasn't pounding at my tongue. Inside, the plant was still trying, and so was she. Her knit cap sat crooked. She smiled at the cups like they might save her. Bless you, she whispered, clutching the hot lid with both hands. Kayla slipped in behind me. We made it tidy, forms, initials, consent lines. Addie read everything like a kid doing homework at the kitchen table. When Kayla got to emergency contacts, Addie looked at me, then down at her hands. You can put my aunt, she said softly. And Maya, if she'll answer when I'm scared. Something in my chest surged and recoiled at the same time. I'll answer, I said, voice scratchy. Kayla nodded, efficient. Cole's name slid off the page without a fight. It wasn't vindictive. It was clean. I thought my hands would shake harder when the lie got erased. Instead they steadied. After, I sat on the window ledge and watched Addie sip coffee with both palms, like she was warming herself at a fire. She looked at the plant. Tell it we're gonna make it, she said, smiling sideways. Plants listen. I told it. I'm not ashamed of that. Back home, the couch looked more like a consequence than a piece of furniture. I made skillet chicken because the motion soothed me, and he chopped vegetables like he was afraid of being too loud. We ate at the table, not the couch, like grown-ups in a brochure. Halfway through, he cleared his throat. Why I think I owe, he said, and my spine went alert. He talked in starts. A kid with braids from the old photo on his mom's fridge. A storm not the kind with weather. Adults who grabbed at him for help until helping felt like the only way to breathe. He said, accident, once and back then, twice, and he never said a name. Every time he got close to the heart of it, his eyes slid away like oil in water. My molars ground until my jaw hummed. I didn't push. Not yet. If you tug too hard on a knot like that, it tightens. Addie isn't her, he said finally. She's just the shape of the debt. That sentence made me put my fork down because my hand had lost its aim. And me? I asked. He met my eyes, and for a second he looked naked in a way that wasn't about bodies. You're the person I thought would understand when I fixed it, he said. It landed like a slap made of apology. I breathed in slow so I wouldn't tip the table with my shaking. Here's what happens next, I said, because giving the plan shape kept me upright. Tomorrow you call Kayla and confirm you're off her file. You move your direct deposit to your own account. You track every dollar you spent and pay back my half into the account with my name only. No speeches. Receipts. He nodded again, quick, eager, like a student guessing what the teacher wanted. Okay, he said. I can do that. I want to do that. I sipped water. After dishes, we go to the storage unit and open the blue tote you never let me touch. He froze, hand to his neck. Why? Because that's where your ghosts live, I said. If I'm going to rebuild anything, I need to see the nails. We washed dishes like people reenacting a life that had already ended. When the last plate clinked into the rack, I grabbed the keys and Cole grabbed the quilt from the couch, as if he'd need something to hold on to. We didn't talk in the truck. The night stretched thin, quiet in that storage lot way, all corrugated metal and moths flinging themselves at a buzzing bulb. The manager had left the gate on a timer. Our code made the chain link rattle and then yawn. Row after row of orange doors, numbers stenciled, the concrete holding the day's heat. Cole's footsteps dragged. He kept rubbing the back of his neck until the skin went pink. Unit B17. The lock stuck twice before it gave. The door rolled up with a groan that made my teeth ache. Inside smelled like dust, motor oil, and the Christmas candle we never finished. Fishing rods. A plastic tree. A box of my college mugs I'd asked him to return and he hadn't. And there, against the back wall, the blue tote with duct tape crisscrossed like he'd strapped it in for a storm. He stood between me and it for a second too long. "Move," I said quietly. He did, like someone had cut a wire. The tape peeled up slow, gummy. My hands shook and I forced them steady. Under the lid sat a folded moving blanket like a decoy. I lifted it and found the first layer, manila envelopes, rubber banded, no labels, just a letter on each in thick marker. A, B, C. His jaw twitched when he saw the A. I opened the B because I am not dumb, and because I wanted to see if he would stop me. He didn't. Inside, pawn slips, pay stubs with extra hours I'd never been told about, a photo of him at 18 with a girl in braids grinning around a county fair ribbon. Helper, it read, blue ink faded. My throat pulled tight and then let go. I set the picture down face up so it felt less like a secret chewing at my ankles. C held printed emails from some community fund, little thank yous signed by different pastors, some with lines about, "Your anonymous gift made this week bearable." Dollar amounts circled, smaller than I feared, bigger than we could afford when the lights were trying to get paid. A spiral notebook slid out after those, the first page written in his fast block letters, "Things I owe." Underneath, a list that read more like a map than a ledger, phrases, not names. The ditch. The back seat. The bridge. The phone I didn't pick up. The last line, when it stops feeling like drowning. I didn't touch A. Not yet. My body leaned toward it anyway, like somebody had put a magnet in my chest. Cole's breath sounded thin. "This looks worse than it is," he said, and I almost laughed because what does that even mean when your life is alphabetized? "It looks exactly like you," I said. My mouth was dry, my tongue kept catching on the words. "It looks like a boy who decided to fix a hole in the world with his hands and forgot he wasn't the whole dam." He sank onto the cooler like his knees had quit. For a second I hated him less, and that made me madder. "A is Addie," he said finally, like he was ripping a bandage I hadn't touched. "She asked me not to write her whole name." "I figured," I said, though a small, mean part of me had hoped for a stranger I could throw away. I took the notebook instead of the envelope and flipped to the middle. Pages of tasks, some checked, some not, rides, copays, sit-through scan, call aunt, fix porch light, with a heart next to it that made me want to throw the book at the wall. "You wrote our house into your debt," I said. "You dragged me into a promise I didn't make." He looked up like he was surfacing. "I thought if I made the list long enough, it would run out," he said. "Like miles on a road." He swallowed and the sound was loud in the little metal room. I know how stupid that sounds when you say it out loud. I squatted until my thighs burned and pulled another piece, a folded paper that wasn't quite white anymore. Sheriff's letterhead. Not a charge, a report. Most of it looked like a photocopy of a photocopy. Words jumped, shoulder, roadside, witness, didn't stop. My palm went slick. "Is this the storm?" I asked, my voice weirdly soft. He stared at the cooler's scuff mark. "A kind of storm," he said. "Not today." "Not today," I echoed, and slid the paper back into C because I wasn't going to take the bait and let him make this about redemption before we even had honesty. I told him, "Tomorrow, we open A." I kept my word. The next day we drove back to the unit, the metal door coughing itself open like it knew our business. The blue tote waited. Cole didn't try to block me, he just rubbed the back of his neck until the skin went dull red. I took the envelope marked A. It was heavier than it looked. On the tailgate I laid out its insides, appointment cards in a rubber band, gas slips, parking stubs, a folded fundraiser flyer with a scrawled number, a cheap silicone ring the color of dishwater, and a grainy print of a window ledge with a stubborn little fern, mine. I didn't touch the photo. Insurance was a maze, he said, voice flat. Every time they asked who I was, I answered easier. He tapped the ring, the sound was small and mean. They said it helps. My throat tightened. It helped you, I said. It turned a boundary into a backstage pass. He flinched and nodded. There was also a napkin with Addie's breezy loops. Bring crackers, no lilies, tell me about the sky. I didn't read the rest. He watched my face and almost said something true, then swallowed it like a nail. I stacked everything into a tidy line because order makes breathing possible. Here's what changes, I said. I'll take the advocate and fundraiser contacts. I'll get her aunt on speed dial. The ring goes in the trash. You don't step in that room without me or family until you can say the promise out loud. My voice shook. I let it. He nodded the way people do when they think agreement is apology. He lifted the fern photo. I took this for you, he said. I didn't bite. Seeing is cheaper than saying, and he'd been paying in coupons while I covered the bill. We boxed A and slid the tote back. Under the buzzing lot light, something in me clicked into place. Revenge wasn't going to be a scream, it was going to be a ledger read aloud. At home I taped butcher paper to the garage wall and drew 2 columns with a fat marker, what you owe me and what you owed before me. When he walked in, hands already up, I handed him the marker. Write. Nouns and verbs. He stared a long beat, then printed, bank account, sleep, porch light, Tasha's trust. In the second column he wrote slower, the ditch, the back seat, the bridge, the phone. His hands shook on bridge. Mine did too. We ate leftovers on paint cans. He kept glancing at the paper like it might catch fire. You're not going to show that to anyone? He asked. Not unless you make me, I said. He exhaled like I'd granted parole. I didn't correct him. Mercy isn't safety. I set the silicone ring on the coffee table between us. He stared at it like it might speak. Trash, I said. When he didn't move, I walked it to the bin myself, feeling the cheap give of it. Back in the doorway I said, tomorrow you call Kayla and her aunt. Speaker on. Then you start telling the promise in whole sentences. He rubbed the back of his neck. And if I can't? I looked at the bleeding columns, a map of everywhere we hadn't gone. Then I'll finish the ledger out loud for both of us, I said. And when it balances, you'll know what I'm taking with me. He shut his eyes and nodded like a man agreeing to surgery. I turned off the lamp. The house fell into that soft dark where every sound counts. In the quiet I heard the garage fan tick as it cooled, steady as a metronome, and I knew the next thing I chose would either let him climb out of his water, or push his head under a little longer. I put the butcher paper back in front of him like a mirror and slid the phone across. Speaker on, I said. He called Kayla. No throat clearing, no preamble. Take my name off, he told her. I'm not her spouse. Use her aunt. Maya for emergencies if she consents. My neck flushed, then cooled. Kayla's voice stayed steady. Done, she said. Help without lying. He nodded at me like I'd given him a cue. He dialed the aunt next and stared at the paper while it rang. I stepped in where I shouldn't have, he said. I told the hospital I was family so she wouldn't be alone. I'm stepping back. I can give rides if you ask, but I won't be the key anymore. A long breath on the line, then, we'll take real help. Not pretend titles. When the call ended, my knees softened and then held. Tasha showed up with pretzels, his mom with her mouth set. We met in the hospital's family lounge, soft couch, lemon and old coffee, a TV on mute. Addie came with her aunt and a nurse who parked the 4-pole by the wall. The plant had been moved to the window like it wanted a better view. I asked for this, I said. No shouting. Words that match. Cole stood with his hands open. I lied, he said, looking at the people he'd bent. I used money that wasn't mine. I made myself a husband because systems like that word. I told myself it was mercy. It was also pride. He swallowed. Maya, I owe you the money. I owe you the years I trimmed down to make room for my debt. I set two small things on the table, the fern photo and the silicone ring. My fingers were steadier than my mouth. This, I said, tapping the ring, goes now. He reached, then pulled back like it burned. I dropped it in the trash. The sound was soft and final. Addie watched, pale and careful. Her aunt exhaled the way people do when a door finally unlatches. Here's the boundary, I said. Kayla has the plan. Your aunt has the phone. If you need a ride, you ask her. If you need coffee, you ask a volunteer. You don't ask him to wear a word that doesn't belong to him. Addie nodded, eyes bright but held. Okay, she whispered. I can live with that. His mom touched my elbow, a small anchor. Now the ledger, she murmured. I opened the photo of the garage wall and read. What you owe me, balance returned to my account, receipts for every dollar you moved, the porch light fixed without a heart next to it, Tasha's trust rebuilt one honest sentence at a time, my sleep. My voice thinned on sleep. What you owed before me, the ditch, the back seat, the bridge, the phone. Tomorrow you tell me that whole, or I finish the ledger out loud. He nodded like a man agreeing to walk through fire because the other side is the only place left. I can do that, he said. I will. The nurse squeezed Addie's shoulder. The aunt dabbed at her eyes. Tasha stared at the ceiling so hers wouldn't fall. We left without hugs. In the elevator my muscles felt wrung out, lighter and heavier at once. Back home, I gave him the couch pillow and the quilt. He didn't argue. He made 2 transfers and turned the screen so I could watch the numbers march back into my account. Each ping felt like scaffolding going up around a broken wall. We did the dishes like a couple in a brochure, then he stood in the garage and faced the paper like a mirror he finally wanted. Tomorrow, I said. Start with the bridge. My voice was quiet, not kind. He rubbed the back of his neck and said, tomorrow, and the word didn't sound like a stall for once. I tucked the backpack deeper under the bed, pressed the mattress down, and lay awake listening to the house breathe. When the porch light flickered once and steadied, I took it as a warning, not a blessing, and let my body learn the shape of that choice while I waited for him to finally say the promise that's been starving us both. He started with the bridge. Not the money, not the hospital, not me, just that one stretch of road where the river runs dark and the guardrail wears dents like old scars. He stood in the garage facing the butcher paper like a witness stand and rubbed the back of his neck until the skin went red. I was 19, he said. Storm coming, but not here yet. I was driving home from second shift, my dad's old truck, the one that rattles like a tackle box. There was a car on the shoulder, hazards, hood propped. A woman waved a jacket like a flag. My dad's voice wasn't in the cab, but it was in my head, saying we don't stop at night because people do stupid things and you can't fix stupid. He swallowed. I kept going. I told myself I'd call once I had service. I didn't. Next morning the paper said a woman died on that bridge. Internal something. They wanted witnesses. I folded the page until her hair, a kind of bright, didn't show. My mouth tasted like pennies. Addie's hair, I said before I could stop myself. He flinched. It turned everything into a ledger, he said. Ditch, back seat, the phone I didn't pick up, each time I tried to balance the bridge. He pointed at the columns. Every favor was me trying to buy the one I didn't give. What was the promise? I asked, jaw tight. He looked at the concrete like it could answer for him. I promised that if I ever stood in a doorway again and somebody needed me, I'd step through so fast the hinges squealed, he said. I promised I'd never let the rules be bigger than a person. He dragged a hand down his face. And then I let that promise eat my marriage. My fingers went numb at the edges. I flexed them until feeling returned. That's the motive, I said. Not romance. Not thrill. Guilt dressed up like mercy. He nodded once, small. I didn't want to be a villain, he said. I wanted to be the opposite, and I still landed on you like a storm. I took the marker and drew one more line under what you owe me. You owe me the right to leave without you calling it another sacrifice, I said. My voice shook and I let it. You owe me not turning my exit into a good deed you get credit for. The air in the garage thinned. He stared at the words like they were the first ones he'd read in a long time. We moved through the house like it had already given us back. I folded my clothes slow, rolled socks in pairs, slid the thumb drive into my bag. On the dresser I set the keys on top of a sticky note that read, rent through next month, projectors back to clinic, Fern stays. My hands trembled, then steadied. In the bathroom I pressed my forehead to the mirror until the fog of my breath drew a circle. I'd thought revenge would taste sweet. It didn't. It tasted clean. That was enough. He waited by the door with his hands open and empty. Do you want me to carry anything? He asked, and I heard how hard he worked to not make it noble. No, I said. Just listen. He nodded. His mouth moved like he was chewing a nail. I'll pay you back in full, he said. And I'll tell Kayla if I slip. I'll fix the porch light because it needs fixing, not because I think you'll see it and come home. I didn't hug him. I didn't make a speech we'd both replay. I stepped close enough to smell the detergent that wasn't ours finally fading from his shirt. I believe you're sorry, I said. I also believe the bridge lives in you. I can't keep drowning on your way to shore. My throat burned. Text Tasha when you make the last transfer. Tell your mom the couch is yours until you're safe with yourself. Tell Addie I'll pick up coffee on days her aunt can't. He nodded like a man learning a new language one syllable at a time. You want the swing? He asked, chin tipping toward the porch. The swing was the first thing we bought together, the only thing that ever made us sit still. I shook my head. Let it hold you while you learn quiet, I said. I'm taking my sleep. On the steps I paused because my legs were cotton for a second. He stood in the hall, not crossing an invisible line he finally saw. Maya, he said, soft, like a word he'd borrowed and was returning. I didn't turn around. Don't make this pretty, I said. Make it honest. The porch light flickered once, like it always does. I didn't wait for it to steady. I walked into the morning that hadn't picked a color yet and felt my jaw unclench, one notch, then another. At the curb, my phone buzzed. A text from Addie, Fern looks less stubborn today. Thank you. I stared until the letters steadied, then typed back, keep breathing, programs are in place, you're not a ledger. A beat later, a heart from Tasha, no words. I put the car in drive and watched the house in the mirror get small. The swing held still. The porch light went out. My hands trembled on the wheel, then stopped, and as the road opened, I chose something that wasn't mercy and wasn't punishment. I chose forward.